You think you can play cards, kid? Prove it! Billionaire Logan Kingsley shoves 15-year-old Khalil Harris into a hulking leather chair at his private poker table. The teen's sneakers dangle above the marble floor as Manhattan's elite crowd, in phones lifted. One hand, you versus me. If you win, he smirks. Unbelievable. I'll bankroll any school you choose. When I win. His gaze slides toward Khalil's mother. Your mom is done here tonight. Kingsley's cold blue eyes lock on Monica Harris, who's polishing wine glasses in the open kitchen. He flicks a poker chip at Khalil's cheek. It hits with a sharp crack, leaving a red imprint. Come on, boy. Show these people why you belong bussing dishes with mommy, not sitting at the grown-ups table with your betters. Laughter erupts. Cameras tilt closer, hungry. They all expect to watch a broke black kid get crushed by a billionaire before dessert. This is sport to them. Easy content, an evening's entertainment, and a savage reminder of where everyone belongs. What they don't realize is they're about to witness something that shatters their faith in money, pedigree, and so-called genius. Ever seen the exact second an underestimated mind detonates and flips reality upside down? Picture this. 40 stories above Manhattan's grid of horns and sirens, where traffic becomes a faint growl and the city looks like a model train set. Logan Kingsley's penthouse stretches across 8,000 square feet of curated excess. Marble floors polished to mirror shine. Crystal chandeliers that could pay off entire neighborhoods' mortgages. Floor-to-ceiling glass offering a godlike view over Central Park. All trees and shadowed paths far below. Tonight, the main living area has been rebuilt into a high-end poker arena. 3 emerald green felt tables sit in the center like islands of vice, ringed by buttery leather chairs that cost more than a teacher's yearly salary. Automatic shufflers whir softly in the corners, feeding cards like obedient machines. Crystal decanters filled with amber whiskey, older than most of the staff, glimmer beneath recessed spotlights. The air is a cocktail of expensive cologne, smoked cigars, and money so secure it's forgotten fear entirely. This isn't just game night. This is where New York's power brokers gather to prove, to each other and themselves, that they're the smartest people in any room. They gamble sums that could fund food programs for years, then call it philanthropy. Entry fee tonight, 10 grand, for youth education. Of course, everyone knows most of that charity will quietly funnel into another wing at some prep academy, already drowning in resources. Logan Kingsley rules the room like a monarch in a tailored throne. At 54, he carries the kind of swagger born from a lifetime of never hearing the word no. His handmade Italian suit could pay off a student loan portfolio. His platinum Patek ticks arrogance. When Kingsley talks, people lean in. Not because he's particularly wise or kind, but because he funds their companies, co-signs their loans, and holds their futures in his portfolio. He made his fortune in tech, disrupting industries he never used. But his mindset is rooted in something ancient and rotten, that wealth equals brilliance, and skin color quietly defines value. Marco, deal another round, he calls, voice lazy, commanding. Marco Ace Santoro, tonight's paid professional, shuffles with the efficiency of a magician who's bored impressing mortals. 30 years of serious poker have turned his fingers into instruments of art. Cards glide between his knuckles fan and snap to the felt in perfect lines. He's hired for $5 grand a night to lose gracefully, massaging egos, letting these hedge fund heroes believe they're strategic geniuses while never bleeding them dry. It's a delicate hustle. Praise their reads, take their money, and make sure they invite you back. But tonight feels different. Tonight. Marco keeps shooting uneasy glances at the slim teenager sitting quietly near the balcony doors. Khalil Harris perches at the edge of an oversized chair, swallowed by buttery leather. His hoodie is clean, but faded. Jeans carefully patched. Sneakers scrubbed bright by a mother's determined hands. Everything about him screams, out of place, which is exactly how this crowd prefers their service staff's kids, visible enough to remind them they're generous, invisible enough to ignore. But if you really look past the clothes and posture, you notice something else. Khalil's eyes never rest. They catalog every card, every bet size, every flicker across a player's face. His fingers tap silent patterns against his thigh. Calculations, not nerves. When someone bluffs, his head tilts a fraction, as if filing away a new entry in a mental database. While the adults assume he's zoning out, lost in kid thoughts, Khalil is building a living archive of human behavior that would stun behavioral scientists. Vanessa Langford adjusts her diamond necklace again and again. Every time she's about to fold a loser, Trevor Collins' left eyelid twitches when he's faking strength. Dr. Lauren Pierce taps the back of her earring exactly 3 times whenever she's quietly running odds. For 3 years, these people have played cards in front of Khalil as if he were a decorative lamp with a heartbeat. They whisper about affairs, confidential deals, and shady tax maneuvers right over his head. But he absorbs everything, not just how the game works, but the delicate, ugly psychology driving each decision. He watches how wealth breeds laziness, how privilege softens instincts, blinding people to their own glaring weaknesses. How folks who've never truly been cornered develop sloppy habits that would be suicidal against real predators. In the kitchen, Monica Harris flows between stations with practiced grace, invisible and essential. At 40, she carries herself with the quiet dignity of someone who's decided her value isn't defined by anyone's paycheck. Her hands, roughed by bleach, steel wool, and the endless friction of scrubbing other people's messes, move with choreographed efficiency as she arranges canapes and tops off flutes of champagne. She's spent years watching her son watch these people, and she's noticed what they haven't. Khalil isn't simply observing, he's studying. Every game night becomes a masterclass in probability, body language, and emotional control under pressure. While other teenagers grind video games after homework, her boy has been getting a bootleg graduate education in psychology and game theory from Manhattan's ruling class, and they have no clue they're the curriculum. Power in this room is as rigid as the stone underfoot. There are those seated at the tables and those who serve them, those who call shots and those who mop up fallout afterward. Khalil and Monica live firmly in that second category. They're acknowledged when needed, ignored when not. Moving props that keep wealthy lives running smoothly. But tonight, those iron lines are about to crack. Because while Logan Kingsley sees nothing but a poor black kid who should know his place, what's actually sitting in that chair is a numbers savant who's been dissecting his patterns for 3 long years. A cold reader of people who can parse micro-expressions faster than seasoned interrogators. A strategic thinker who's digested advanced game theory while pretending to scroll aimlessly on his phone. The stage is set. The characters are locked in, and Logan Kingsley is seconds away from discovering that the most dangerous opponent at any table is the one you never bothered to notice. The night's script is about to be rewritten. The evening hums along in its usual rhythm of self-congratulation and casual cruelty when Kingsley spots Khalil flipping through a poker manual left on a side table. The kid's fingers trace diagrams of hand rankings and betting lines, his eyes raking each page. "Check this out," Kingsley announces, his voice slicing through chatter. The help's kid thinks he can study strategy. He laughs, sharp and theatrical. He strides over and yanks the book from Khalil's hands, waving it like evidence. "Tell you what, champ, since you're so fascinated with the game, why don't you show us your skills? Real live demonstration for the donors." Conversation dies, heads swivel, phones rise, lenses hungry for the kind of spontaneous cruelty that racks up millions of views. This is the type of spectacle they brag about later. "Actually," Kingsley says, eyes brightening as a nastier idea takes shape, "let's make this a proper lesson." He points toward the main poker table, its felt surface glowing beneath chandeliers. "One hand of Texas Hold'em, the kid versus me." Vanessa claps delightedly. "Oh, this is adorable," she gushes, "like teaching a puppy tricks." Laughter ripples, brittle and eager. Everyone loves a rigged show. "Here's the setup," Kingsley declares, louder now, surfing the crowd's anticipation. "If this young man somehow beats me, which is about as likely as Times Square going dark, I'll cover a full scholarship to any private school in the city. Amused murmurs float around him. To them, tuition is pocket change, a bet that looks generous on paper but feels perfectly safe. Kingsley knows the odds are stacked. But when I win, he lets the pause hang, savoring it. There's a little consequence. His gaze slides to the kitchen. The room quiets. Your mother packs up tonight, he tells Khalil, voice silk over steel. Find some new job, somewhere far from my building. We clear. Monica's glass trembles in her grip. 4 steady years of work, health insurance, the small staff room she and Khalil share, suddenly all on the line. Come on, Kingsley says, gripping Khalil's arm and steering him to the main table like he's a prop, not a person. Don't be shy. Show these nice people what happens when your kind tries thinking. Marco's jaw tightens as Kingsley forces the boy into a seat. For the first time all night, the pro looks unsettled. Mr. Kingsley, maybe we should deal the cards, Marco, or find another gig. The warning lands like a slap. Marco shuts his mouth and begins shuffling, motions clipped and angry. He's seen ugly things around poker tables, but this feels colder. 500 each, Kingsley declares, sliding Khalil a stack of chips. Real stakes. You ever held this much money before, kid? Try not to drop it, Trevor snorts. Careful, Logan. Don't bankrupt yourself on the help. More laughter, sharp as broken glass. Khalil studies the man who's turned his family's stability into a party trick. The chips are heavy in his hands, plastic clacking against plastic. A dozen cameras record every twitch of his face. The room's laughter swells like a tide. But as he sinks into the oversized chair, something shifts behind his eyes. The uncertain teenager recedes, replaced by a calm, calculating presence that has been waiting. 3 years earlier, in a cramped walk-up that smelled faintly of menthol rub and old photos, 9-year-old Khalil sat cross-legged on a frayed rug, watching his grandfather work a deck of cards like a surgeon. Poker ain't really about the cards, kiddo, Harold Harris told him, voice raspy but strong. It's about reading souls. He dealt 2 cards apiece, fingers steady despite the arthritis swelling his knuckles. Every person walking this earth has tells, Harold said, tapping his temple, little habits that snitch on them when they think nobody's paying attention. He'd learned poker while killing time between patrols overseas, where misreading someone's intentions could mean coming home in a flag-draped box. After the military, he cleaned office buildings at night and turned weekend card games in Washington Square Park into grocery money and rent. Watch this. Harold contorted his face into exaggerated expressions, then relaxed. When folks lie, their bodies squeal on them. A twitch here, a shrug there. Most people are open books. They just never realize somebody's reading. Young Khalil devoured every word. While other kids memorized cheat codes, he memorized combinations. If there are 52 cards and you see 5, how many remain? What are the odds the river helps? Harold would ask, and Khalil's answers came quick, almost instinctive. But Harold's lessons went deeper than math. He taught Khalil to hear the tremor in someone's voice when they were cornered, to notice how breathing changes when people get greedy, how their eyes dart when they're planning a lie. Rich folks think money makes them sharper, Harold would say, chuckling, but money can't train your face not to flinch. The lessons continued every Sunday for 2 years, cards, stories, and hard-earned wisdom until the coughing fit started, then late-night emergency rooms, then a diagnosis that came too late, because the right tests and specialists cost more than Harold's lifetime of savings. Don't let them decide your price, Harold whispered from a hospital bed, pressing a worn $5 poker chip into Khalil's palm. Vegas, 73. Won it off some smug executive. Guy thought I was just the janitor. Harold smiled, tired but fierce. Make sure you show them who you really are. 3 days later, he was gone, leaving behind a grieving grandson with a photographic memory for people and an unsteady fire in his chest. When Monica took a cleaning job at Kingsley's building, she started bringing Khalil along, trusting him more than any babysitter she couldn't afford. While she scrubbed penthouse bathrooms and polished hidden corners, Khalil became part of the decor, silent, unremarked, watching everything. At the Kingsley place, he discovered a goldmine of behavioral data. These wealthy players had never faced real consequences for bad reads, so their tells were loud, exaggerated, and completely unconscious. Vanessa fiddled with her necklace whenever she was ready to surrender. Trevor's eye twitch screamed bluff, louder than any announcement. Dr. Pierce's triple earring tap telegraphed she was crunching numbers. Most important of all, Logan Kingsley carried a tell so huge it was practically a billboard. Whenever he felt uncertain or vulnerable, his hand drifted to his expensive watch, thumb rubbing the metal as if reassurance lived in its gears. He did it during negotiations, dinner parties, media interviews. Every time his confidence wobbled even slightly, always unaware. After school each day, while Monica clocked in at a second cleaning job downtown, Khalil camped at the public library. Free Wi-Fi became his secret academy. He streamed professional poker tournaments, froze frames to study body language, memorized charts, and practiced on free online tables under fake usernames. Concepts that took adults years clicked quickly. Pot odds, implied odds, bluff catching, leveling wars. Librarians smiled, thinking he was researching projects. Teachers noted he was quiet, gifted with numbers, and assumed that was the end of it. Nobody imagined a teenager from the staff quarters was quietly building an arsenal of skills that could unnerve professionals. But Khalil's true motivation wasn't fame or revenge. Every night he watched his mother spread bills across a table, watched her decide which ones could be delayed. He saw her skip meals, pretending she'd already eaten. He saw the exhaustion etched into her shoulders as she laced up worn shoes for double shifts. Every tutorial, every hand history he studied, every tell he logged, he did it for her, for a life where she wasn't cleaning after people who never learned her name. Tonight, with their home and her job balanced on 5 cards and a billionaire's cruelty, all that hidden work finally matters. Harold's faded chip rests in Khalil's pocket, warm from his palm, as he stares across at the man who equates intelligence with net worth. Time to show them what a janitor's bloodline can really do. Marco's hands move with fluid precision as he shuffles one last time. Cards whisper against felt. The sound, slicing the charged silence. 52 possibilities are about to decide an entire family's future. Texas Hold'em, Marco announces, voice steady but eyes tight. Each player gets 2 whole cards, then 5 community cards face up. Best 5-card hand takes the pot. He deals 2 cards to each. The soft slide of cardboard suddenly sounds enormous. Around them, 20 phones are tilted, recording from every angle. Everyone expects a quick execution, another neat story about knowing one's place. They're not ready for a plot twist. Khalil peeks at his hand the way his grandfather taught him. No dramatic movement, no lingering stare. 7 of spades, 8 of spades. His expression remains blank, but his brain lights up. Suited connectors, 2 consecutive cards of the same suit. Not a monster, but brimming with potential if the board cooperates. Across the table, Kingsley checks his cards and can't quite smother his satisfied smirk. Ace of clubs, king of diamonds. Big slick, as the pros call it. One of the most respected starting hands in the game. Kingsley's confidence spikes. In his head, he's already mentally donating the scholarship money he'll never actually pay. Pre-flop action starts with you, Mr. Kingsley, Marco says. Kingsley doesn't hesitate. He flicks $50 in chips forward, making a little show of it. Let's keep it friendly, he chuckles. Don't want to scare the kid. The crowd chuckles along, eager accomplices. So considerate, Vanessa stage whispers, starting low for our little student. All eyes pivot to Khalil. This is his first real decision, and everyone expects him to fold immediately. Why would a broke teenager risk $50, probably more than he's ever held at once, on 2 middling cards? But Khalil is busy replaying Harold's lessons and 3 years of watching Kingsley's betting patterns. When Kingsley placed that bet, his nostrils flared slightly, a reliable sign he believes he's ahead. He leaned back in the chair, shoulders loose, radiating dominance. Most importantly, he didn't touch his watch. No insecurity anywhere. Khalil gently slides 50 forward. I call, he says, voice barely above a murmur. A ripple of surprise moves through the room. The kid isn't running. Suddenly this feels less like a skit. Marco burns a card and deals the flop. 3 community cards face up in the center. They land. 6 of spades, 9 of hearts, 5 of clubs. This is where things get interesting. Khalil's 7-8 of spades now connect with the board to form an open-ended straight draw. He needs a 4 or a 10 to complete a 5-card straight. 8 potential outs around a 31% chance by the river. Kingsley's ace-king, on the other hand, whiffs completely. He's holding 2 overcards, higher than anything on the board, but no pair, no draw, just air. In poker language, he's sitting on ace-high, which is functionally worthless in a serious pot. But in Kingsley's head, ace-king is still a premium weapon, and he's facing a teenager who couldn't possibly understand the mess of probabilities swirling around them. 50 more, Kingsley declares, pushing chips forward with renewed aggression. He wants to muscle Khalil out before the kid stumbles into something lucky. Khalil has seen this exact move dozens of times. Kingsley betting hard to end hands early when he feels strong, but tonight, there's a glitch. As he reached for the chips, Kingsley's hand twitched toward his watch for a heartbeat before redirecting. Uncertainty, quickly smothered. Instead of folding, Khalil does something that knocks the air from the room. He raises. 150, he says quietly, sliding out an extra stack. The penthouse goes instantly still. Marco's eyebrows climb. What did we just see? He thinks. An untrained kid might shove all in randomly, but this raise is sized with surgical precision. Enough pressure to ask a question, not enough to overcommit. It's a textbook semi-bluff. He's betting with a drawing hand that can improve, using aggression to force mistakes now and set up profit later. I raise, Khalil repeats, slightly louder. A murmur sweeps through the crowd like wind through tall grass. Well, I'll be damned, Trevor mutters. Kingsley's easy grin falters. This was supposed to be slapstick, a billionaire schooling the help. Why is this kid playing like he's read the same textbooks? Vanessa's fingers freeze halfway to her necklace, mid-habit. Is he actually good? She whispers. Marco leans forward, fully engaged now. That raise wasn't random. The timing, the board texture, the sizing, it all screams understanding. Your action, Mr. Kingsley, Marco prompts. For the first time all night, Kingsley hesitates. His fingers drift toward his watch like iron to magnet before he yanks them back. His audience senses the shift instantly. The laughter dulls to a buzz. People edge closer, phones angling for better angles. Nobody's joking now. Call, Kingsley says, trying to sound casual, but there's a thin crack in his voice. Marco burns another card and turns the 4th community card, the turn. A single rectangle of cardboard that can rewrite destinies. It hits the felt with a soft, decisive sound. 4 of diamonds. To most, meaningless. To Khalil, everything. The board now reads 6-9-5-4. Combined with his 7-8, Khalil has completed a straight 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. In this exact moment, he holds the nuts. The absolute best possible hand given the board. No combination of hole cards can beat him right now. Mathematically invincible. Across the table, Kingsley still clings to ace-king, an impressive-looking hand that currently amounts to nothing but ace-high bravado. He doesn't grasp how dead he is. In his mind, he still holds a big hand against a boy who just got lucky. Interesting turn, Marco murmurs, scanning the table as a professional, finally seeing the trap snapping shut. Instead of lunging forward with a big bet like many amateurs would, Khalil does something that would make world-class pros nod in respect. He taps the felt once. Check. He's slow playing. A calculated trap. Showing weakness with an unbeatable hand, inviting his opponent to hang himself with his own chips. It's the kind of move that requires ice water in your veins and absolute faith in your read. Khalil knows Kingsley, knows how badly the man needs to prove dominance, especially on camera. Check is bait. Kingsley, predictably, bites. 200, he announces, shoving chips forward with renewed swagger. In his head, the kid's check confirms it. Khalil is scared, unsure, ready to fold and preserve his precious 500. Time to finish the story and strut. The crowd breathes again, reassured. This looks more familiar. The billionaire reasserting control. But Khalil reads Kingsley like a cheap paperback. 3 years of watching have mapped every micro-expression. When Kingsley announced that bet, his nostrils flared, his chest lifted. He's telegraphing that he feels strong again. His shoulders square, chin tilting slightly. But Khalil spots the tiny tremor in his right hand as it retreats from the chips, the barely there twitch of someone still worried about the cameras. Vanessa leans toward Trevor. "Is this still funny?" she whispers. Trevor doesn't answer. He's too busy watching the kid across the table who hasn't broken a sweat. Monica stands frozen at the kitchen threshold, dishcloth clenched in her fist. She knows that expression on her son's face. It's the same look he wore solving impossible math problems in elementary school, the same calm he had at Harold's funeral. Somewhere beneath the glittering chandeliers, a fragile hierarchy is wobbling. For the first time all evening, Logan Kingsley isn't entirely sure of the script. A minute ago, the room saw a billionaire toying with a staff kid. Now they're watching something else entirely, a real contest of nerve and intellect. Some part of Kingsley senses it too, because his hand hovers briefly over his watch, fighting instinct. He snatches it back, jaw tightening. The cameras catch everything. His hesitation, the sweat starting at his temples, the teenager staring him down without blinking. Marco keeps his expression neutral, but inside, adrenaline spikes. He's rarely seen this kind of composure in grown men, let alone a kid whose family lives 2 floors below in a windowless staff room. The board glows under chandelier light. 6 of spades, 9 of hearts, 5 of clubs, 4 of diamonds. Khalil straight sits invisible yet undeniable, coiled beneath his checked weakness, waiting for Kingsley to keep overreaching. The guests shift, shoes whispering over marble as they adjust their angles. A couple of them lower their phones slightly, sensing that whatever happens next isn't just content, but something uglier, more revealing. The casual jokes about teaching the boy a lesson have dried up. Nobody wants to be the one laughing on a viral clip if this goes sideways. Kingsley clears his throat, trying to reclaim the room's attention. "You can still fold, kid," he says, attempting a condescending smile. "Take your little savings and walk away. No shame in knowing when you're beat." His words hang heavy. Khalil doesn't move. He feels Harold's chip pressing into his leg through denim, as if his grandfather's hand is there, steadying him. The weight of his mother's future sits on the table between them, disguised as small colored discs. He inhales once, slow and measured, eyes never leaving Kingsley's face. He studies the billionaire's posture, the flex of his jaw, the restless fingers hovering too close to that watch. There it is again, the ghost of uncertainty he's seen 100 times on phone calls and during tense negotiations. The crowd murmurs, restless. The invisible gap between help and host feels smaller than it has ever felt here. Khalil knows without doubt he's holding the best possible hand. The math is solid. The board texture is clear. The only real variable left is how much more of Kingsley's stack he can take before the river. He lets another beat pass, stretching the tension, forcing the older man to sit in his own decision. Marco notices the control of pacing and silently whistles. This kid isn't just lucky. He's dangerous. All around them, the city glitters through the windows, unaware that in this glass box in the sky, a narrative older than the building itself is being challenged. Billionaire versus busboy's son. Power versus perception. Arrogance versus earned understanding. Kingsley's fingers drum once on the table, then stop, as if he realizes the cameras are drinking in every nervous tick. He straightens, trying to armor himself in arrogance again. When he pushed that $200 bet into the pot, his nostrils had flared in that familiar "I'm strong" pattern, his shoulders broadening as he leaned forward. Textbook dominance. But Khalil sees past the pose, down to the tiny muscle twitch beneath Kingsley's eye, the shallow edge to his breathing. Every signal stacks with the math in Khalil's head, forming one clear conclusion. The king at this table is bluffing himself. Khalil's gaze flicks briefly to the chips, then back to Kingsley's face, never lingering long enough to betray anything. The billionaire's shoulders stay squared, but his eyes flick to his watch for half a heartbeat. The same unconscious reach for comfort Khalil has cataloged for years. He's broadcasting strength, but his body leaks doubt, and the kid across from him reads every drop like bold print. Most importantly, he still hasn't reached for his watch, which tells Khalil that Kingsley feels utterly in control. The billionaire doesn't realize he has marched straight into a trap built just for him. Raise. Khalil murmurs. 400. The number slams through the penthouse like a shockwave. Vanessa Langford's champagne glass hangs suspended midway to her lips. Trevor Collins just stares. Even Marco, who's watched almost everything the game can throw at you in 3 decades of poker, actually blinks. A 15-year-old kid has just bumped a billionaire to $400. This stopped being a joke the second those chips crossed the felt. Serious stakes, serious cards, serious mind games. What the hell? Kingsley's smooth veneer fractures. His hand twitches toward his watch before freezing. This was supposed to be a little lesson, a piece of live instruction theater, not an actual hand where Kingsley might walk away, bruised. Marco leans in, every instinct in his seasoned brain screaming that something unusual is unfolding. Gentlemen, action is on you, Mr. Kingsley. This is absurd, Kingsley snaps, but the edge of bravado has drained from his voice. He's 15 years old, Kingsley protests. He has no clue what he's doing. But even as the words leave his mouth, doubt threads through his thoughts. The kid's betting rhythm doesn't feel random. The timing, the raised size, the composure, they mirror concepts Kingsley himself only half understands. This isn't playground guessing. It's structured, deliberate, far too calculated to be simple luck. Vanessa leans toward her husband, voice low but urgent. Maybe this should stop. The kid clearly knows what he's doing. No, Kingsley barks, ego drowning out common sense. I'm not getting shown up by the helps boy. Call. The pot swells to $800, real money that could cover months of Monica's rent. But it's more than cash sitting in the middle now. Reputations, assumptions, entire belief systems about who deserves to be called smart hang over that pile of chips. Marco burns a card and peels off the river, the final card, 5 of hearts. A total brick, changing nothing for either hand. Khalil still holds an uncrackable straight. Kingsley still has pure air. Final betting round, Marco announces, tension humming in his voice. Khalil examines Kingsley's face like a specialist studying scans. Every flicker around the eyes, each tiny twitch at the corner of his mouth gets stored and weighed. The billionaire's breathing is just a little too fast now, pupils blown wide with pressure. His fingers keep straying toward that expensive watch, then yanking back. The body language equivalent of flashing a neon sign, scared, unsure, cornered. The man is quietly unraveling and doesn't even know it yet. Check, Khalil says, knuckles tapping the felt. It's surgical. By checking with the absolute best possible hand, he hands Kingsley one last opportunity to torch himself, to pour more money into a pot he is mathematically dead in. It's pure psychological warfare. Display softness while secretly holding the sharpest blade at the table. Kingsley's thoughts spin. The kid checked again. That has to be weakness. Teenagers aren't supposed to know how to fake vulnerability on purpose. This is his chance to slam the door, reclaim control, restore the natural order. All in, he announces, ramming his remaining $150 into the pot. Every chip. Let's see what you're really made of, kid. His voice dares, but his eyes flicker. A collective inhale sucks the oxygen from the room. Kingsley has just pushed every last dollar in front of him into a pot he has zero possibility of winning against a 15-year-old who has been quietly slicing him apart since the first deal. Khalil glances at the mountain of chips, then at Kingsley's face, then at the forest of phones filming what's about to become legend. Call, Khalil says, nothing more. The snare snaps shut. The outcome is decided. Only the reveal remains. The instant he matches Kingsley's shove, the penthouse drops into a suffocating hush. Around $1,000 in chips glows in the center, more than Monica earns in months waiting to be claimed. Before anyone flips a card, Marco pushes back his chair, his professional pride insisting he speak. Ladies and gentlemen, his voice slices the silence cleanly. You need to understand what you're watching. He gestures toward the pattern of cards on the felt. The board reads 6, 9, 5, 4, 5. Marco exhales slowly. I've been grinding this game for 30 years, and what this young man just pulled off here. He shakes his head, honestly stunned. He pauses, still shaking his head, the wonder completely unforced. This is top-tier strategy. Vanessa finally lowers her glass, her cruelty replaced by something like respect. What are you talking about, Marco? Watch the betting flow, he says, voice growing steadier, more authoritative. Khalil called the first wager, then raised on the flop while his hand was still drawing. Not made yet, but loaded with potential. That move's called a semi-bluff, Marco continues. You need real command of odds and psychology to pull it off. Then, when the turn card hit, he checked with what I'm nearly certain was a monster hand, and only pounced after Mr. Kingsley bet. That's classic slow play. Trevor leans forward, the smirk gone. So, the kid actually knows how to play. I'm saying, Marco answers, his tone shifting low and grave, that I've seen this exact pattern of decisions at World Series of Poker main events. Pros pay thousands for coaching just to understand this stuff. This teenager executed it flawlessly against a man who believes he owns the skyline. The room's mood lurches. Phones that were filming for laughs now document something else entirely, an uncomfortable, electrifying brilliance. The realization creeps in. They might be witnessing real genius from a place they never expected. Dr. Lauren Pierce, who's stayed silent until now, finally speaks. Marco, are you saying this 15-year-old is actually outplaying Logan? Ma'am, I'm not saying, Marco replies, voice firm. If he's holding what I think he's holding, we just watched a masterclass in high-level poker psychology. He read Mr. Kingsley like a book, managed the size of the pot perfectly, and squeezed maximum value out of someone who never even noticed the snare, Marco says. Kingsley's complexion drains as the meaning lands. The laughter that cocooned him minutes before has vanished. The same crowd that cheered his cruelty now studies him with a new expression, curiosity tinged with something sharper. Eyes that once saw unshakable power are beginning to recognize fragility. This is ridiculous, Kingsley stammers. He's just a kid. He's just what? Monica's voice floats in from the kitchen doorway, steady and clear. She's been silently watching the whole spectacle. For the first time in 4 years, she addresses Kingsley's guests directly. No tray in her hands, no apology on her face. Just brilliant, just gifted, just someone you never bothered to actually see because of the color of his skin. She finishes. The air in the penthouse changes texture. What started as a cruel little floor show has twisted into something else entirely. A live reckoning with prejudice, with lazy assumptions, with the dangerous habit of linking intelligence to comfort instead of capability. Marco turns his attention back to Kingsley. Sir, he says evenly, it's time to table your cards. The moment of truth has finally sat down at the felt. Everyone here, everyone except Kingsley himself, suspects they're seconds away from witnessing something they'll be talking about at dinners, boardrooms, and bar stories for years. They can feel history shifting quietly under their feet. Show your hand, Marco instructs, his voice carrying the weight of thousands of hours spent under casino lights. Kingsley's fingers tremble as they move toward his hole cards. His brain refuses to compute this outcome. A 15-year-old from the staff corridor cannot have outplayed him. It feels biologically wrong, socially impossible, his entire worldview splintering in real time, right here in front of everyone. He snaps the cards over with a flair he no longer feels. Ace of clubs, king of diamonds, ace-king, Marco announces. Big slick. He taps the board. 6, 9, 5, 4, 5. With this runout, Mr. Kingsley has ace-high. A confused murmur ripples. To amateurs, ace-high sounds impressive. Marco's flat tone says otherwise. It means he basically has nothing. In poker terms, Marco clarifies, ace-high means Mr. Kingsley effectively has zero. No pair, no straight, no flush, just an ace that doesn't connect with anything. In this spot, it's about as weak as you can be. The truth slams into Kingsley. He just risked close to $1,000 on nothing, and his brain keeps screaming that can't be right. Ace-king is supposed to be a monster, he thinks, panicked. How can that be nothing? Every gaze shifts to Khalil, still tucked into that oversized leather chair, looking both too young and too composed for this moment. Cameras tighten in on his fingers as they reach for his cards. Ladies and gentlemen, Khalil says evenly, let me show you something my grandfather taught me. He turns his cards over. 7 of spades, 8 of spades. Marco's eyes flare as everything clicks into place. His voice falls to a reverent hush. 7-8 of spades on 6, 9, 5, 4, 5. He repeats, running the count. That gives Khalil a straight. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The unbeatable hand in this exact spot. No card combination can possibly outrun him now. The penthouse explodes in gasps and jagged whispers. Vanessa's glass slips from her fingers, crystal detonating against marble. Trevor's jaw hangs open, all his clever remarks evaporated. A straight beats ace high. The pot goes to Khalil. Marco declares, his professional mask cracked by honest awe. But the cardboard only tells half the story playing out tonight. The real shock isn't the winner. It's how completely everyone misread the player. Marco turns to the stunned circle of onlookers, his voice now wearing every ounce of his professional credibility. What you just saw wasn't luck, he tells them. This young man has been ahead since the turn card. Instead of blasting away and chasing Logan out, he disguised his strength, slow playing the nuts so his opponent would keep feeding the pot. He gestures along the line of chips. He walked Mr. Kingsley step by step into committing every chip he owned to a pot he could never win. That isn't beginner's fortune. That's calculated psychological warfare. Kingsley gawks at the cards, his mind refusing the numbers. This can't be real, he mutters. This shouldn't be possible. Yet the felt in front of him offers no mercy, only facts. The math's actually pretty straightforward, Khalil says, his teenage voice slicing neatly through the noise. After the turn, you had maybe a 6% chance to win. I had the nuts, the best hand possible. You pushed everything in on 6% because you couldn't correctly read the situation. The explanation hits Kingsley like a barrage of small, merciless bullets. It's not just the lesson. It's the cool, clinical way a 15-year-old is describing how completely he dismantled a billionaire. More importantly, Khalil continues, rising slightly in his chair, addressing everyone now. You never recognized my strength because you were blinded by what you assume I'm worth. Applause starts hesitant, then swells into a hard, rolling thunder that fills the penthouse. New York's moneyed elite rise to their feet, applauding a teenager they spent years pretending not to see, acknowledging a mind that just proved itself in the most undeniable way. Marco was first to clap, respect overriding social lines. In 30 years at the Felt, I've almost never seen execution that clean, he says. That was a masterclass in reading and manipulation. Kingsley stays nailed to his chair, staring at the cardboard that just shattered his self-image. The boy he branded inferior has beaten him with patience, logic, and discipline. The hand is done. The cash is spoken for. But the real win is only beginning. As the applause slowly fades, Marco turns back to the crowd like a judge ready to read a verdict. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to fully grasp what just happened, Marco says, drawing on 30 years of hard-won authority. This was not a lucky punch. This was not beginner's charm. What Khalil just pulled off requires command of ideas most players never touch. He sweeps a hand over the felt, the layout still frozen as proof of what they witnessed. He read micro-expressions to decode tells. He tracked pot odds in real time. He used advanced psychological pressure to squeeze maximum dollars from a completely losing hand. Marco lets that sink in. Pros spend decades chasing those skills. Vanessa, whose earlier laughter now tastes sour in her throat, steps forward a little, discomfort written plainly across her carefully made-up face. Marco, are you saying this boy has been studying poker? Vanessa asks, voice small. Ma'am, he replies, I'm saying he's been studying human behavior at something like graduate level, while we all treated him like background decor. The words slice through the room's vanity. For the first time since the hand began, Khalil rises fully, turning to face the people who've ignored him for years. For 3 years, I've sat in corners of rooms like this, Khalil begins, watching you play and assuming you thought I was too young, too broke, too black to understand. His voice is soft but unshakable, commanding the room. But my grandfather taught me something about cards. He said poker doesn't just reveal luck, it reveals character every single time. Tonight, every person in this room showed me exactly who they are, Khalil says. Trevor shifts in his seat. Now, wait just a... "No, sir," Khalil cuts in, calm but firm. "You wait. You laughed when Mr. Kingsley compared me to less than human. You raised your phones hoping to film a kid being torn down for your entertainment. You measured my worth by my mother's uniform and by my skin." He continues. "The silence that follows is thick, almost physical. But poker taught me something else," Khalil says, voice strengthening. "It taught me that assumptions are dangerous. Mr. Kingsley assumed I was beneath him because of my circumstances, not because of anything I'd actually done. Tonight, that mistake came with a very public price tag. That assumption just cost him about $1,000 and a reputation he thought was bulletproof," Khalil says. Monica steps fully into the room now, no longer hiding behind swinging kitchen doors. "My son taught himself strategy from library books and free videos," she says, pride steady in her tone. "No tutors, no coaches, just curiosity and access to a computer. While you were busy assuming what he couldn't do, he was building skills," she adds. "Skills you pay consultants obscene fees to teach you badly." Dr. Lauren Pierce clears her throat, shame obvious. "Khalil, how long have you been watching our games?" "3 years, ma'am," he replies. "Every Thursday match, every weekend tournament, every casual hand during your dinners. I've tracked your tells and patterns." "That's not possible," Kingsley finally manages, his voice drained of authority. "You're just a kid. Kids don't have that kind of capacity for—" "For what?" Khalil asks, the question hanging like a sharp blade. "For analysis, for strategy, for learning, or just for being better than you decided someone like me is allowed to be." The words expose the rot under Kingsley's disbelief. Marco delivers the closing line. "Mr. Kingsley, in poker we have a saying, play the player, not the cards. You played your stereotype, not the actual human being across from you. That's why you lost." Monica's voice follows softly but firmly. "My son's already been accepted early to Harvard," she says. "We just didn't know how we'd pay for it before tonight." The energy in the room flips as reality settles. They haven't just watched a hand of cards. They've watched the public demolition of everything they believed about brilliance, status, and who deserves success. "The real lesson tonight isn't poker," Khalil says, sounding far older than his years. Heads tilt toward him, waiting for whatever comes next. Even those who never fold now feel something in their certainty quietly collapsing. "It's about the cost of underestimating people because of your assumptions," he finishes. "Tonight, those assumptions cost Mr. Kingsley almost everything. Tomorrow, they could cost any of you just as much." The reckoning feels complete. Justice arrived not with anger, but with calm, unshakable intellect, displayed where no one can claim they didn't see it happen. It sits in their memories like a permanent mark. 6 months later, the change is visible and irreversible. Khalil Harris sits in the sleek library of Manhattan Preparatory Academy, his Harvard early admission letter framed beside Harold's worn poker chip. Morning light pours through floor-to-ceiling windows as he tutors 3 classmates in advanced probability theory, ideas that once seemed unreachable for a kid from a staff apartment 2 floors below the rich. The secret to reading people isn't magic, he tells his study group. It's watching, seeing patterns, and knowing everyone leaks their thoughts through tiny habits. His phone buzzes with a text from Monica. Channel 7 wants another interview about the Scholarship Foundation. "Are you free this weekend?" One video changed everything. One clip of a game that was never just a game. Within 24 hours of Trevor posting the footage, "Where's Your Card Genius" is trending worldwide. A 15-year-old black kid dismantling a billionaire's worldview one decision at a time racks up over 50 million views across platforms. But the true impact runs deeper than likes or shares. People replay the clip to study each choice, each calm, devastating move. It becomes required viewing in places that once ignored kids like him. 3 weeks after that night, Dr. Lauren Pierce approached Monica with an offer: run her family's charitable foundation for triple Monica's old salary. "We need someone who actually recognizes what intelligence looks like," Lauren said, "and understands how easily we overlook it." Monica accepted, and within months proved that years of managing chaotic, wealthy households translated perfectly into organizing multi-million-dollar philanthropic projects. The Harold Harris Foundation, named for Khalil's grandfather, has already granted 47 full scholarships to gifted students from working families. The criteria aren't test scores or polished essays, but proof of grit, kids who learn fast, adapt under pressure, and keep pushing. We look for the ones people underestimate, Monica tells reporters. The quiet kids in corners, noticing everything. The kinds of kids this city usually overlooks until it's convenient. Those kids sit quietly at edges of rooms, absorbing everything while adults assume they're not sharp enough to count. After the video, applications to chess and card clubs in community centers spike by 400%. Libraries report shelves of strategy books constantly checked out. Educators start talking about the Khalil effect in conferences and research papers. Suddenly, overlooked brilliance becomes a hot topic instead of an afterthought. But the most satisfying shift involves Logan Kingsley himself. The man who once helmed a tech empire worth billions now grinds as a mid-level consultant at a firm that wouldn't have taken his calls 2 years ago. His board pushed him out within weeks of the video as clients and partners scrambled to distance themselves from his televised racism. 6 months later, his wife files for divorce. Irreconcilable differences covering what everyone knows, that she refuses to stay with a publicly exposed bigot. His children, mortified, stop answering. The penthouse that once staged his poker shows is sold to cover legal fees and settlements. His empire suddenly feeling surprisingly small and fragile. The man who once seemed untouchable now lives surrounded by echoes of lost status. The buyers converted into a learning center for gifted kids from underserved communities, an irony nobody misses. Kingsley now lives in a small studio in Queens, reheating frozen dinners and watching news stories about Khalil's success. Each segment reminds him that the boy he tried to humiliate instead authored his downfall. It is a nightly reminder that arrogance can be more expensive than any bad investment. Meanwhile, Khalil's academic record keeps outpacing expectation. Perfect scores in advanced calculus and behavioral psychology, captain of both the debate team and chess club. Early offers arrive from Harvard, MIT, Stanford, and Yale, not for his poker highlight reel, but for the analytical mind that made those plays possible in the first place. Teachers who once overlooked him now design entire lessons around questions he asks. Poker was just the demonstration, says Dr. Naomi Blake, his advisor. His real talent is processing complex data, spotting patterns, and applying theory in real situations. That works anywhere. The documentary The Boy Who Saw Through People wins several Emmys and kicks off debates about talent and access. Parents, teachers, and students stream it, arguing about what opportunity really means. The documentary's most striking scene shows Khalil back at his old community center, teaching basics to kids who might otherwise slide under everyone's radar. Every Saturday, I see kids who look like me, he tells the camera. Quiet kids, sharp kids, kids whose potential stays invisible to people who think zip code and bank account determine how smart you're allowed to be. The card room where he first learned odds and tells now bears a new name, the Harold Harris Memorial Room, his grandfather's photo watching from above the main table. Marco Santoro, the pro who saw Khalil's breakout hand, becomes an unexpected mentor and champion. That kid changed how I think about talent, he says in interviews, shaking his head. Real skill doesn't always wear designer suits, Marco says in one segment. Sometimes it sits in the corner, just watching and learning, waiting for a shot. Scholarship recipients from the Harold Harris Foundation are already making waves. Marisol Vega, a 12-year-old from the Bronx, just took first place at the National Math Olympiad, stunning judges who'd never heard her name before. Daniel Kwan, whose parents pulled double shifts at a diner, earns early admission to MIT's engineering program. Amani Brooks is coding an app to help kids from single-parent homes locate free academic support. We're not just paying for school, Monica explains in her foundation office, overlooking the park where Khalil once played. We're investing in brilliance everywhere, especially in places people used to ignore. We're proving brilliance exists everywhere, Monica says. You just have to know how to spot it. The ripple keeps spreading. Business schools now present the Kingsley case as an example of how bias wrecks judgment. The poker world embraces Khalil as proof the game is truly democratic, where skill, not pedigree, decides outcomes and reputations. It's a quiet challenge to the old belief that money equals mind. Top pros now seek his thoughts on reading tells and mind games. By 17, Khalil has been invited to observe World Series of Poker events from behind the scenes, though he keeps his focus on school instead of grinding tournaments. "Poker taught me about people," he says in one interview. But people are everywhere, not just at the tables. "You meet people everywhere," he adds. "In science, business, politics, understanding minds helps in any path. For now, Harvard waits. Full scholarship, plus a place in their accelerated psychology program." His essay, "Why Assumptions Are Dangerous," circulates among educators as a sharp piece of teenage analysis that forces adults to question how they judge potential. Teachers pin printed copies to bulletin boards, underlining passages to discuss with new classes. The documentary closes with Khalil's prep school graduation. He stands as valedictorian before an audience that includes people who once barely noticed him. "Intelligence isn't inherited through wealth," he says, his voice deeper but unchanged in resolve. "Brilliance isn't tied to privilege. It grows wherever curiosity and opportunity finally meet." The applause lasts so long that the principal finally has to gently ask everyone to sit. "Brilliance isn't passed down through bank accounts," he says. "Genius grows wherever curiosity meets opportunity, even in the shadows where nobody thinks to look." The standing ovation stretches past 5 full minutes. Today, Khalil Harris stands as living proof that potential has no fixed address, no standard uniform, no approved accent, only the courage to keep making the right call again and again. And somewhere in Queens, in a small rented apartment, Logan Kingsley watches the graduation broadcast on a cheap television, finally grasping the true price of assumptions that once felt so safe. Subscribe for more stories of hidden brilliance, unlikely victories, and the moment prejudice collides with undeniable truth. Because right now, somewhere, another mind like his is being dismissed. And all that mind needs is someone willing to look closer, to question easy narratives, and to bet on its real potential. Somewhere, a kid sits quietly in the corner of a room, watching everything, learning fast. The only difference between obscurity and history is whether anyone chooses to see them before the next hand is dealt. Truly see them. Never underestimate a quiet mind. If you are in your 60s or 70s, you have probably seen this before. Someone with money and power assumes the help is simple and learns too late how wrong they were. In Logan's penthouse high above New York, that one cruel hand of poker was never just about cards. For many older Black Americans, and for anyone who has ever been talked down to, Khalil's calm courage feels familiar. He carries his grandfather's wisdom like a worn coin in his pocket and shows in front of rolling cameras that arrogance can be more costly than any $1,000 pot. Opportunity can change a bloodline. Many of you remember scraping by, stretching every dollar, the way Monica does. One hand of cards doesn't erase years of struggle, but it opens a door. Harvard tuition paid, a foundation in Harold's name, scholarships for kids who grew up the way you or your children did. The lesson for our later years is clear. When true talent finally meets real opportunity, a whole family's story can turn, sometimes in a single evening. Your witness still matters. If you have grandchildren, think of them watching this story online. They will see that a boy from a staff room can outthink a billionaire, and that a mother who once scrubbed floors can run a foundation. For those of us with gray hair and long memories, there is comfort and responsibility here. We are the generation that can point to Khalil's story and say, "See, never let anyone tell you what you're worth. Let your mind, not their prejudice, write the next chapter." Friends, after hearing Khalil's story and the way one quiet teenager overturned a billionaire's certainty, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever been underestimated because of your age, your job, your race, or where you came from, and proved people wrong? Or have you watched a child or grandchild surprise the world the way Khalil did? Share your experience in the comments so others can learn from it. And if this story moved you, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it so more hidden brilliance can be seen.